Hey everyone, my name is Katrina and I'm the face behind the Genius Educator. I am going to be creating this video today for any teachers that are in student teaching, newbie teachers, and teachers who have only been in it for a short period of time and are feeling a bit overwhelmed. I've got a few tips and tricks today that just might make your life a little bit easier. Before I get too far into it, let me remind you to please like and subscribe if you are interested in any tips for tech, any poetry audios that you can actually play out in your classroom for your students, and then any videos like this where I'm going to be giving you maybe how to's and different tips from things that have worked for me in the past in the last decade that I have been teaching. Get rid of your expectation right now of having an entire year planned out. Please just throw it straight out the window. First and foremost, as a first year teacher, if you are one day ahead of your students, you are doing great. So, this idea that you have to have your whole year figured out is just absolutely wrong. It's false. It's not going to happen. And you're going to set yourself up for a lot of frustration. And when it comes to education, we have to be very, very flexible because fire drills happen. And oopsie, I forgot to tell you, I have my kids going on a field trip today. So then you don't see the kids that day. And then your plans for the week are kind of shifted and shot. And that having that like solid, this is exactly how my year is going to look is unrealistic. So, my recommendation for you set the expectation of being one day ahead of your students. And if you can get a week ahead of your students or more, obviously, but that would be great. Next, listen to what the veteran teachers are telling you. They're going to have information from years and years and years of teaching that is going to be very valuable. Gather what they tell you, take it all in, and then go into your classroom and close the door and sift through it and figure out what of this information is going to be helpful for my teaching style and what of this information is going to help my specific cohort of students this year, and then discard the rest. Because I promise you that in the field of education, everybody has an opinion on what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing. And everyone thinks that their way of doing it is the best way. And the truth is, there is no best way. It really depends on who you are as an educator, and it depends on the cohort of that year. And every year is a different blend of wonderful little personalities. And tying into that, as a first year teacher, keep mentioning that you're probably going to feel a bit overwhelmed. Avoid any other teachers who are critical, jaded, or just overall negative about the teaching profession, and find that pocket of optimistic teachers who are still excited about teaching and go to them to help build you up and support you. It's just, you need to have that kind of system, that root system to keep you chugging along when the first year can be a bit much. So that's really important. Okay, next, I'm going to give you three helpful tips if you are struggling with your classroom management. And if you're not quite in the classroom yet, jot these down and remember them for later. Tip number 1, you need to take a look at your routines and the structure of your classroom if you're experiencing a lot of misbehavior in your classroom. So, what this looks like is the next time you step into your classroom, you're going to put a few things into place. One, when they walk into your classroom, they're going to know exactly what seat they're going to sit in. They are not going to like the assigned seats, but if you're having a lot of misbehavior, they need to know exactly what seat that they are expected to sit in. Number 2, when they walk in, up on your smart board or your whiteboard or whatever it might be, you need to have consistent warm-ups. So when my students walk into my classroom, I have a Google slide up that tells them a do now. And then on the side, it tells them what we're going to be doing that day in that class. Every single day when they walk in, they know find my seat is step one. And then number 2 is do the do now that's on Miss Kamani's board. And this helps me so much because I don't have to go around and say, please sit down, please quit talking to your neighbor, blah, blah, blah. I just walk around and I say, okay, who's doing the do now? Who needs to get focused on the do now? It's so much easier. They know my expectation because it's that way every day. Third thing, they need to have a place that does not move all year long where they turn in homework. Now, I have little homework bins, and each bin is a specific class period. I teach middle school and college seniors. So each class knows this is my bin, and then second period has a different bin, and it's always in the same place. That way, when it's up on the board, when they walk in, turn in your homework, they don't even have to ask me or do not hand me their papers because I will misplace it. It goes directly into the bin, and then they are seated and they start their journal, right? Or whatever it is that's next. This prevents so much chaos. Some teachers prefer to have students pass all the papers to the front of that row and then turn it into them. The main point is, however you have your students turn in homework, it has to stay consistent all year long. So it doesn't so much matter what that looks like as long as your students know what to expect. And the last thing that needs to be put into place for structure is you need to have a place that is the same spot where students get worksheets or things that you want them to pick up, like handouts. Keep that spot the same all year long as well. I have a place that I call my student center. And when the kids walk in, I watch them. They come in and they look at the student center and they look to see if there's a handout for their class. If there is, they pick it up sometimes without even reading the board, which is telling them to pick it up, but it's amazing. It's this routine that we get into that saves me from having to do a lot of talking and reprimanding and redirecting, and it's just routine, and it's wonderful. And the next step is to start to be very deliberate with your celebrations. So, what is human nature when it comes to misbehavior is for us to address it. As the teacher, when we have a student who is misbehaving, we must give them our attention. And so, what tends to happen if you have a cohort with a couple of bad eggs, as we'll call them, then the students that are putting in a lot of effort and time and just care about your class, they get kind of shuffled to the wayside because you're spending all of your energy trying to address the negative. So you must make time every week. And I know that's a lot to ask as a new teacher, but you have to do it. You must make time every week to deliberately find two students, maybe three if you can find the time, and reach out to their parents about the wonderful things they're doing in your classroom. If you're afraid of a phone call right now, as some new teachers are, you don't want to talk to parents on the phone, then you must send an email, find their email and get it sent out. But in that correspondence with that parent, you want to sing the praises of the students in your class that are doing amazing things, that are showing up on time, being respectful, putting an extra effort into their work, improving. Maybe they went from writing 3-sentence paragraphs to 8-sentence paragraphs. They helped a student in the hallway pick up their agenda when it fell. Anything that you can think of, you should say all the good things and just send it home. And one, you're creating great communication with parents, but that parent is going to speak with that child, and that child is going to know that you see them. And even though you may not have time during class because you're dealing with the negative, what it's going to do is it's going to slowly start to build a really good rapport with those good students and create a better culture. Then, once you start consistently doing that, you can shift to start to do it in your classroom where you've already reached out home and you're developing this relationship with a student. And now, say it's 2 weeks later after you reached out home and they turn in a phenomenal writing sample. I want you to show the class that beautiful writing sample and only talk about the amazing things that that student did and how this is a picture of what you want your other students to do, and really celebrate them. And if you have your students who are being misbehaving and things like that, what's going to happen after a certain amount of time is they're going to notice, wow, my teacher really pays attention to the students that are putting in all this awesome work. Like all of the attention, which is what the bad kids really want, all the attention's going to these students that are working hard. And these other students, now they're going to start working harder to get your praise and get your attention. And so you'll slowly start to win over the mid ground students, the ones that are like giggling at the bad students but aren't, engaging in the behavior. You're going to start to win those kids to your side because they want you to call home for about them. They want you to show their work. And it's gonna be low key, as the kids say, but you'll slowly translate all of this positivity and build a better culture over time to the point where the bad behaviors are going to become annoying to your better students. Because the misbehaving students are actually pulling your time and attention away from these kids that are putting in extra work, and they're going to start getting annoyed. And really, what it's going to do is it's going to solve a lot of your classroom management problems for you, which is the goal. All right, so my last bit of tips is for less of like the classroom management stuff. Those are my two big tips there. Get a routine, stay structured, start to do those private celebrations that kind of leak into your classroom. This is for those of you that are just feeling like, I don't know how to get to the end of the school year because I'm so overwhelmed with grading. Here's some tips for you. It's time to break out the red pens and to give all the kids a red pen and to have them grade each other's paper. This needs to be a low stake assignment, not like an essay, but something that you can provide the answers for them easily. They can go through and mark them off and whatever. Please don't assume kids know how to grade papers. Please, the first time, walk them through the process, and then they will be successful in the rest of the worksheet. Now, if you're ever feeling overwhelmed in the sense that you don't have enough gas in the tank, that is the perfect time to Google Pixar shorts. They can be geared towards characterization, setting, plot, theme, basically anything that you've covered so far in that school year. And you can set the expectation that the students are going to be doing a silent, independent writing assignment from it. Really, the world is your oyster and what you ask them to do. But if you want it to last, an entire class period so you can just get a bit of a break from feeling overwhelmed, have them write like a chapter two. This is what happened in the Pixar short. What would you predict would be like the next episode in this kind of a series if it was a TV show? And if you set the expectation right up front that it's going to be a silent time period and you just quietly circulate, it's going to be so wonderful, a nice little break for you during the day. And then the kids are going to get to do something super fun and practice their writing skills. If there's ever a day that you get into school and you just feel like you have nothing in you, it's a Friday in March. If you haven't gotten to March yet, I swear it is the longest month of the year when it comes to teaching. If you just feel like you don't have it in you to do anything, then this is the perfect day to do an independent reading day. So, first and foremost, when they walk into your classroom, you should have the lighting be as low as possible. Maybe turn your lights to half power, something like that. Mine actually is dimmable, which is wonderful. The second thing you should have on is some sort of a calming music. I'll use like a soft jazz, an instrumental. Lately, I've been playing soft guitar music when the kids are writing, and it really just zones them down, focuses them in. They don't want to be loud and hyper because the guitar music is just so nice. Then you want to really set them up for getting excited about reading something that they want to read. I would do like a mini field trip to your library if you have one in your classroom, and kind of help kids decide what book would be best for them because it needs to be geared toward their interest. But if you don't have a classroom library yet because you're brand new, then just have them do like a field trip. This is in quotation marks, a field trip down to your school library and work with your librarian to have them pick a book. Maybe set like a timer so that it's kind of a fun competition. You have to find a book that's based in your interest within 8 minutes or something. So that way, like the whole class period isn't eaten up down there, just them wandering around and trying to be crazy. It's okay to do an independent reading day. That doesn't make you a bad teacher. In fact, students need to do more independent reading without you reading it to them or, it being very structured. It's really nice to get kids to love to actually read something just for the love of reading. And it's really nice to get a day where you don't have to be on. So, those are my biggest tips for first year teachers. Hopefully, this was helpful. Let me know in the comments any other things that you'd like to have tips on. I know I'll be making more videos like this very soon. So, thanks for listening, guys.